Ambassador Kethver adjusted his crystalline, breathing apparatus as he stepped onto the observation deck of the Galactic Council's flagship. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, the third planet of the Sol system hung like a blue-green marble against the cosmic void. His 4 eyes, each capable of seeing different light spectrums, focused on the swirling white clouds that obscured much of the planetary surface below. "Behold, the self-proclaimed warriors of Earth," sneered Commander Zixtal, his scaled hide rippling with amusement. The reptilian officer's tongue flicked out, tasting the recycled air of the ship's atmosphere. "Look at that primitive world. Still covered in wild vegetation, uncontrolled weather systems, and chaotic biological diversity." Kethver's tentacles writhed in what his species considered polite laughter. Around them, representatives from dozens of advanced civilizations gathered to witness what they believed would be a simple demonstration of superior firepower. The Galactic Council had grown tired of Earth's stubborn refusal to submit to their authority. These humans, barely 3 centuries into space travel, had somehow managed to establish colonies on 17 worlds and consistently refused to acknowledge the Council's dominion over their sector. "Their technology is laughable," commented High Priestess Valana, her energy form flickering with disdain. "They still use chemical propulsion for atmospheric flight. Their computers require physical components instead of quantum consciousness matrices. And look at their military vessels, crude metal hulks held together with welds and bolts." The assembled aliens had spent the past 6 months studying Earth's defenses. Their spy networks had infiltrated human space, cataloging every ship, every weapon, every strategic position. What they found only confirmed their assumptions. Humans were primitive, barely evolved beyond their planet-bound ancestors. Their cities were chaotic sprawls instead of perfectly organized geometric structures. Their governments were fractured into competing nations rather than unified, under a single supreme authority. But what truly amused the Council representatives was Earth's insistence on preserving vast areas of untamed wilderness while civilized. Species had long ago converted their entire planets into efficient urban centers. Humans maintained enormous regions of uncontrolled forests, mountains, and jungles. Satellite imagery showed these areas teeming with dangerous predators, unpredictable weather, and terrain so chaotic it defied logical navigation. "They call it national parks and nature reserves," Kethver said, reading from a cultural analysis report. "Apparently, they believe maintaining these primitive ecosystems serves some recreational purpose. They actually venture into these dangerous areas voluntarily, without protective equipment or environmental suits." The assembled delegates erupted, in clicking, hissing, and electromagnetic bursts that served as laughter among their various species. The very idea that an intelligent civilization would preserve dangerous wilderness instead of converting it to useful industrial space seemed beyond comprehension. Commander Zixtal activated the holographic display, showing detailed scans of Earth's surface. "Our biological analysis indicates these jungle regions contain venomous creatures, parasitic organisms, and predatory life forms that would kill most civilized beings within hours. Yet humans regularly expose themselves to these environments and somehow survive." "Primitive adaptation," dismissed High Priestess Valana. "Their crude biological forms simply haven't evolved beyond the need to cope with such hostile conditions. Once we demonstrate our superiority, they'll abandon these wasteland areas and adopt proper civilization standards." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. The Council fleet would establish orbital dominance, neutralize Earth's pathetic space defenses, and then land occupation forces in major population centers. Within days, perhaps hours, human leadership would surrender. The species would be incorporated into the Galactic Council as a minor client race, useful primarily for manual labor in dangerous environments where their primitive hardiness might prove valuable. Admiral Vexmore, Supreme Commander of the Council. Fleet materialized on the observation deck in a shimmer of transported particles. His cybernetic enhancements gleamed against his pale gray skin as he addressed the assembled dignitaries. "The human fleet has taken defensive positions around their outer colonies," he reported with mechanical precision. 47 ships total. armed with kinetic weapons and primitive energy projectors. Our battle analysis computers predict total victory within zero point 0.3 standard time units. The aliens had studied human military history extensively. These creatures fought with crude tactics, relying on overwhelming firepower and numerical superiority. Their greatest military victories had been achieved through simple attrition rather than sophisticated strategy. They had never faced an enemy with technological superiority, energy shields, or faster-than-light tactical mobility. "What of their ground forces?" inquired Kethver. Admiral Vexmore's optical sensors flickered through several data streams. Standard planetary defense forces concentrated around urban centers. Approximately 12 million active military personnel equipped with chemical projectile weapons and basic energy small arms. Their most advanced units operate mechanical vehicles with limited armor protection. "And their special forces?" asked Commander Zixtal, though his tone suggested the answer would be equally unimpressive. "Various elite units with specialized training," the Admiral replied. "They appear to conduct operations in extreme environments, including the wilderness areas we discussed. Intelligence suggests they use these primitive regions for training purposes, though we cannot determine what skills they believe they're developing in such wasteland conditions." The assembled delegates shared another round of amused communications. The idea that advanced military training could take place in uncontrolled natural environments rather than sophisticated simulation chambers or controlled training facilities seemed particularly absurd. As the Council fleet moved into attack position, confidence radiated from every representative. This would be a quick demonstration of galactic superiority, followed by the integration of another primitive species into the ordered structure of civilized space. Earth's wilderness would soon be converted to proper industrial usage, and humanity would learn to appreciate the benefits of technological advancement over their chaotic natural systems. The orbital bombardment platforms charged their weapons, preparing to disable Earth's communication networks and orbital installations. In a matter of hours, the Council's ground forces would land in major cities to accept humanity's inevitable surrender. The age of human independence was about to end, and the galaxy would add another compliant species to its perfectly ordered civilization. None of them suspected that Earth's greatest strength lay not in the cities they planned to target, but in the wild places they dismissed as primitive wasteland. The first phase of the invasion proceeded exactly as the Galactic Council had predicted. Admiral Vexmore's fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their advanced vessels cutting through Earth's outer defense perimeter like heated blades through organic tissue. Human ships, valiant but outmatched, engaged the invaders with desperate courage that impressed even their alien enemies. Captain Sarah Chun watched from the bridge of the UES Defiance as her task force's railgun volleys sparked harmlessly against enemy energy shields. The alien vessels moved with impossible grace, their hulls seeming to bend space around them as they advanced through the human defensive line. "All ships, focus fire on the lead dreadnought," she commanded, though she knew it was futile. The alien vessel absorbed their combined firepower without showing any sign of damage. Return fire from its energy projectors reduced 2 human destroyers to expanding clouds of superheated metal in seconds. On Earth's surface, the initial orbital bombardment had been surgical and precise. Communication satellites went dark, power grids flickered and failed in major cities, and defensive installations found their weapon systems mysteriously offline. Yet the aliens had been careful to avoid civilian casualties. Clearly intending to rule over living subjects rather than radioactive wastelands, emergency broadcasts crackled through backup systems as world leaders attempted to coordinate a response. President Martinez's voice echoed through underground command centers and hardened military bunkers across the globe. "All remaining forces implement Operation Sanctuary immediately. I repeat, all units execute Sanctuary protocols. May God help us all." In the depths of the Amazon rainforest, Colonel James "Ghost" Mackenzie received the transmission through his unit's quantum entanglement communicator. Around him, 200 of Earth's most elite soldiers checked their equipment one final time. These weren't ordinary troops, they were members of the Terran Wilderness Operations Command. specialists trained in the most hostile environments Earth could provide. Mackenzie's weathered face showed no emotion as he addressed his team. Ladies and gentlemen, the cavalry isn't coming. The fleet's been scattered, the cities are about to fall, and conventional forces won't last another 6 hours. From this moment forward, we are Earth's last line of defense. Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her camouflage netting, the specialized fabric designed to defeat both visual and thermal detection systems. She had spent 3 years training in this jungle, learning to move through the dense undergrowth without disturbing a single leaf, to track prey by scent alone, and to survive for weeks on whatever the forest provided. "Sir, what's our operational window?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Indefinite," Mackenzie replied. "We go dark until the aliens think they've won. Then we teach them why Earth's wilderness isn't just scenery." Similar conversations were taking place in remote locations across the globe. In the Siberian wilderness, Captain Viktor Petrov's Arctic Rangers received their final orders before disappearing into forests so dense and cold that even satellite imagery couldn't penetrate their depths. High in the Andes Mountains, Lieutenant Ana Vargas led her mountain warfare specialists into cave systems that had never appeared on any map. The aliens' ground assault commenced with textbook precision. Troop transports descended through Earth's atmosphere in perfect formation, their advanced shields deflecting the few remaining surface-to-air missiles. Landing zones were secured within minutes, and occupation forces began establishing control zones around major population centers. Commander Zixtel personally led the initial landing in what humans called New York City. His cybernetically enhanced troops moved through the streets with mechanical efficiency, their energy weapons and powered armor making them seem like walking gods to the terrified human. Civilians who watched from behind barricaded windows. "Resistance is minimal," he reported to the orbital command ship. "Local military forces have withdrawn rather than engage. We estimate complete pacification of this urban center within 2 standard time units." Similar reports flooded in from landing sites across the planet. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Berlin, every major city fell within hours as human forces seemed to evaporate before the alien advance. Government officials either fled or attempted to negotiate surrender terms, while civilian populations huddled in their homes awaiting their fate. High Priestess Velana materialized in the occupied United Nations building, her energy form casting strange shadows on the walls as she addressed the assembled human diplomats who had remained behind. "Your species has fought bravely but futilely," she announced, her voice resonating through quantum translators. "The Galactic Council offers generous terms for your integration into civilized space. Abandon your primitive wilderness areas, adopt proper urban planning standards, and submit to Council authority. In return, your people will be granted basic citizenship rights and protection under galactic law." Secretary General Rodriguez, one of the few remaining high-ranking officials still on Earth, stepped forward with dignity intact despite the circumstances. "And if we refuse? Then your species will be classified as a dangerous primitive culture requiring direct supervision," Velana replied without emotion. "Your breeding population will be relocated to more suitable worlds where proper civilization can be gradually introduced." The human diplomat's face remained carefully neutral, but his hands trembled slightly as he spoke. "I will need to consult with our remaining leadership. You have 12 standard time units to provide a response," the High Priestess said before fading from view. What the aliens didn't know was that Earth's real leadership had already provided their response weeks ago. In hidden bunkers and remote wilderness command posts, Operation Sanctuary was fully activated. Conventional military assets had been ordered to conduct fighting withdrawals toward designated wilderness areas, drawing alien forces away from urban populations while appearing to retreat in disarray deep in the Congo Basin. Major Sarah Williams watched through advanced optics as an alien patrol craft passed overhead, its sensors sweeping the jungle canopy below. The sophisticated detection equipment found nothing unusual, just another section of primitive wilderness teeming with uninteresting biological activity, the patrol craft's crew would have been shocked to learn that 200 human soldiers lay concealed within 100 meters of their flight path, invisible beneath camouflage so sophisticated it could fool quantum sensors. More shocking still would be the knowledge that these humans were moving through terrain that would kill most galactic species within hours, doing so with the silent grace of apex predators in their natural habitat. The aliens had studied human cities, human technology, and human conventional military capabilities, but they had dismissed Earth's wilderness as irrelevant wasteland, never suspecting that humanity's greatest warriors were forged not in training facilities, but in the very environments the galactic civilization considered too primitive to matter. The invasion was proceeding perfectly according to alien expectations. Soon they would discover just how wrong their expectations had been. The first alien patrol to disappear in the Amazon happened so quietly that it took 3 days for the occupying forces to notice. Patrol Unit 779 had been conducting a routine reconnaissance mission, mapping the boundaries between human urban areas and the vast wilderness regions the Council planned to convert for industrial use. Subcommander Yixtel had been leading the patrol, confident in his unit's superior technology and training. His soldiers wore powered armor that could withstand direct hits from human kinetic weapons, carried energy rifles capable of vaporizing organic matter, and used sensor equipment that could detect life signs through solid rock. They were, by any civilized standard, invincible. The jungle patrol should have been a simple 3-hour mission. Map the terrain, catalog any remaining human settlements, and return with recommendations for resource extraction sites. Instead, Yixtel's unit simply vanished somewhere between the morning check-in and their scheduled afternoon report. Colonel Mackenzie watched the alien search parties through his scope, counting 15 aircraft and twice as many ground vehicles converging on the area where the patrol had last been seen. The aliens moved with obvious frustration, their sophisticated sensors detecting nothing but the normal chaotic signatures of jungle wildlife. "They're searching in a standard grid pattern," whispered Sergeant Santos, who lay concealed in the muddy ground 5 meters away. Poisonous insects crawled across her exposed skin without biting, deterred by the natural plant compounds she had rubbed into her flesh days earlier. Professional but predictable. Mackenzie nodded, never taking his eyes from the alien commander who stood beside one of the search vehicles. Through his scope's advanced optics, he could see the creature's obvious agitation as report after report came back negative. The aliens were learning their first lesson about Earth's wilderness. Their technology was designed for civilized environments, not primordial chaos. The alien search had been going on for 6 hours when the second patrol disappeared. This time, the vanishing happened in broad daylight with air support overhead. Patrol Unit 442 had been following the trail of the first missing unit when their communications simply cut to static. The overhead surveillance craft immediately swept the area with every sensor in their arsenal, finding only normal jungle signatures and a family of howler monkeys that seemed unusually active. What the aliens couldn't detect was the network of human soldiers who had spent months preparing for exactly this scenario, hidden in trees, buried in specially constructed blinds, and camouflaged so perfectly they seemed to become part of the jungle itself. Earth's wilderness specialists moved like ghosts through their environment. Sergeant First Class Tommy Spider Rodriguez had earned his nickname by climbing trees that should have been impossible to scale and moving through forest canopies without disturbing a single branch. He watched the alien search party pass directly beneath his position, their sensors sweeping frantically through the undergrowth, while remaining completely oblivious to the human warrior suspended 20 meters above their heads. The aliens were learning that their technological superiority meant nothing in an environment they didn't understand. Their energy shields could stop projectile weapons, but couldn't protect against the paralytic toxins that Spider had carefully applied to his crossbow bolts. Their armor could resist direct hits from human firearms, but wasn't designed to handle venomous spines that had been harvested from local plants and sharpened to needle points. Most importantly, their sensors were calibrated for detecting artificial technology and organized military formations, not individual humans who had learned to mimic the biological signatures of jungle predators. As the third day of searching continued, Commander Zixtel found himself facing a problem that his military education had never prepared him for. 2 full patrols had vanished without a trace, and his search parties were reporting increasingly strange phenomena. Soldiers complained of feeling watched from the jungle shadows. Equipment malfunctioned in ways that made no technical sense. Sensor readings showed impossible biological signatures that appeared and disappeared like phantoms. Perhaps the humans are using some form of stealth technology we haven't encountered, suggested Lieutenant Kexival, his scaled hide showing stress patterns that indicated deep unease. Or they might have developed new sensor jamming techniques. Zixtel examined the tactical displays showing their search efforts, noting how the missing patrols had been taken from areas marked as impassable wilderness in their orbital surveys. Request additional sensor sweeps of the jungle regions. Use deep penetration scanners and quantum resonance detectors. Whatever the humans are using to hide their forces, we will find it. The enhanced scanning revealed exactly what the previous sensors had shown: a thriving ecosystem full of biological activity and absolutely no sign of organized military presence. According to their most sophisticated detection equipment, the jungle contained nothing more dangerous than various species of primitive animals and aggressive plant life. This conclusion would have been correct by the standards of any civilized military force. Unfortunately for the aliens, Earth's wilderness specialists had long ago abandoned the standards of civilized warfare. Captain Mackenzie's unit had been tracking the alien search parties for days, learning their movement patterns and identifying their vulnerabilities. The enemy's technology was impressive, but it came with critical weaknesses that could be exploited by warriors who understood unconventional tactics. Their communications rely on quantum entanglement arrays, reported Technical Sergeant Lisa Park, who had been analyzing captured alien equipment. Sophisticated but vulnerable to certain forms of interference. The local electromagnetic field generated by this region's mineral deposits can disrupt their signals if we know where to apply pressure. Park had discovered that the Amazon's unique geological composition created natural interference, patterns that could be manipulated to create communication dead zones. Combined with carefully placed signal jammers disguised as fallen logs and termite nests, the humans could effectively isolate alien units from their command structure. What about their armor and shields? Asked Sergeant Santos, field stripping a captured energy rifle while keeping watch on the approaches to their concealed position. Energy-based defenses, Park explained, designed to deflect high-velocity projectiles and directed energy weapons. But they have significant gaps in protection against biological agents, chemical compounds, and unconventional attack vectors. The aliens had never faced an enemy that would coat their weapons with locally harvested venoms, hide explosive devices inside realistic-looking animal droppings, or use the jungle's own predators as unwitting allies in combat operations. Their military doctrine was based on civilized conflict between technological equals, not asymmetric warfare conducted by an enemy that had learned to weaponize an entire ecosystem. As night fell over the Amazon, the aliens began their most intensive search yet. Floodlights blazed through the jungle canopy while sensor drones swept every square meter of terrain. They were determined to find the human forces that had to be hiding somewhere. In this primitive wilderness, they never suspected that the real trap was already closing around them, and that Earth's jungle elite had spent weeks positioning themselves for the coming lesson in wilderness warfare. The aliens were about to discover that sometimes the most advanced technology was no match for warriors who had learned to make friends with the darkness. The night attack began at 0347 hours local time, when the aliens were certain their overwhelming technological superiority had finally cornered the elusive human forces. Commander Zixtel had deployed every available unit in a coordinated sweep operation. Using orbital support to illuminate the jungle floor with enough artificial daylight to eliminate any possible hiding places, what happened next would be studied in alien military academies for decades to come. Assuming any of the participants survived to file reports, Sergeant Spider Rodriguez moved through the canopy like a living shadow, his enhanced night vision allowing him to navigate between branches that would have been invisible to most species. Below him, alien soldiers advanced through the undergrowth with their weapons ready, their energy shields crackling with protective force fields that could stop any known projectile weapon. Spider's crossbow bolt, tipped with concentrated venom from 3 different Amazon species and fired from directly overhead, struck the lead alien in the neck joint where his armor plates met. The projectile was too small and slow-moving to trigger the shield's defensive systems. Passing through the energy barrier like a mosquito flying through a hologram, the alien warrior collapsed silently, his nervous system shutting down before he could cry out. His squadmates continued advancing for another 30 seconds before realizing their leader was no longer with them. By the time they found his body, Spider had already moved to his next position too. 100 meters away, this scene repeated itself dozens of times across the jungle as Earth's wilderness specialists demonstrated the fatal flaws in advanced military technology when deployed in an environment it wasn't designed for. The alien sensors could track energy signatures and metallic objects with perfect precision, but they struggled to differentiate between a human heartbeat and the natural rhythms of the rainforest. Countless creatures, Major Williams watched through her thermal scope as an alien patrol became increasingly agitated, their formation tightening as they realized they were being hunted by an enemy they couldn't see. The creature's body language showed growing panic despite their technological advantages, and she could hear their increasingly frantic radio chatter through her unit's translation software. Contact! Contact! We're under attack from I don't know what direction. Unable to locate hostiles. Sensors show only normal biological activity. Jacksville is down. Repeat, Jacksville is down. No visual on the attacker. The aliens' predicament was understandable from their perspective. They were fighting an enemy that seemed to violate every principle of civilized warfare. Human attackers appeared and vanished like phantoms, striking from impossible angles and melting back into jungle undergrowth that should have provided no concealment from their advanced detection equipment. What the aliens couldn't comprehend was that Earth's wilderness specialists weren't hiding from their sensors. They were using the jungle's natural chaos to mask their presence. Every movement was coordinated with the natural rhythms of the forest, every attack timed to coincide with the sounds of night-hunting predators and shifting vegetation. Sergeant Santos demonstrated the principle perfectly as she approached a 4-being alien fire team that had taken defensive positions around a massive tree trunk. Her approach route took her through a stream bed filled with mud and rotting vegetation that masked her thermal signature, while her movements perfectly matched the territorial patrol patterns of a local jaguar that regularly used the same path. The alien sensors detected what appeared to be a large jungle cat moving through its natural territory, an unremarkable occurrence that triggered no alarms. By the time Santos rose from the water like some primordial creature, her face painted with mud and her weapons coated in locally harvested toxins, she was close enough to eliminate the entire fire team before they could react. The psychological impact on the surviving alien forces was as devastating as the physical casualties. These creatures came from civilizations that had long ago conquered their natural environments, turning entire planets into ordered technological paradises where every variable was controlled and every threat eliminated. They had no context for understanding an enemy that seemed to command the very wilderness around them. Colonel Mackenzie monitored the larger tactical picture from his mobile command post, a cleverly disguised tree blind that would have taken alien sensors months to locate. His communications network relied on quantum entanglement links hidden inside artificial bird nests and camouflaged relay stations that appeared to be nothing more than termite mounds and fallen Logs. Echo Team reports 27 confirmed. Eliminations in Sector 7. Came the whispered report from Captain Stevens, whose mountain warfare specialists had been adapting their high-altitude techniques to jungle operations. Alpha Team has isolated an entire company in the river valley and is preparing for final phase operations. The final phase was perhaps the most psychologically devastating aspect of Earth's unconventional response. Rather than simply killing isolated alien units, the human forces had developed tactics designed to demonstrate the complete futility of technological superiority in an environment that didn't respect civilized rules of engagement. Alien survivors would be found days later, their weapons and equipment carefully removed but their lives spared, wandering in circles through jungle maze that their navigation systems couldn't penetrate. Some would be discovered hanging upside down from trees, secured by vines and natural fiber ropes, alive but completely helpless. Others would wake up to find their power armor disabled by organic acids that had been carefully applied to critical circuits, leaving them trapped in several hundred kilograms of useless metal. The message was clear: in Earth's wilderness, alien technology was not just ineffective, it was a liability that made its users helpless against enemies who understood the environment better than any computer system. Commander Zixtel found himself facing a complete breakdown of his operational command structure as unit after unit either disappeared or reported impossible encounters with human forces that seemed to possess supernatural abilities. His officers were demanding explanations that he couldn't provide, while his soldiers were beginning to show signs of combat stress that their medical protocols had no procedures for treating. "Sir, we need immediate orbital support," urged Lieutenant Kexival, his voice carrying undertones of panic that would have been unthinkable just days earlier. "Whatever the humans are doing in these wilderness areas, our ground forces cannot counter it effectively." Zixtel stared at the tactical display showing the scattered remnants of his once proud invasion force. 3 companies had been reduced to isolated squads. His communication networks were failing due to interference he couldn't explain, and his supposedly invincible warriors were reporting encounters with human enemies that appeared and vanished like spirits. "Prepare for full orbital bombardment of all wilderness regions," he commanded, his voice carrying the bitter taste of defeat. "If we cannot root out these human forces conventionally, we will eliminate their hiding places entirely." High above the Amazon, alien warships began charging their planet-cracking weapons, preparing to turn Earth's vast wilderness areas into lifeless wastelands. The galaxy's advanced civilizations were about to learn that when technology failed, the answer was always more technology. A lesson that would prove even more costly than their initial invasion. In the jungle below, Mackenzie's forces prepared for the next phase of their resistance campaign, knowing that their enemy's desperation would soon force them to reveal the true scope of human preparation and adaptability. The orbital bombardment began at dawn, turning the morning sky into a lattice of energy beams that could vaporize entire mountains. Admiral Vexmore had authorized the use of planet crackers, weapons capable of reshaping continental geography, to eliminate Earth's wilderness areas and the mysterious human forces that had made them so deadly. Colonel Mackenzie watched the first strikes through his bunker's periscope, seeing ancient trees that had stood for centuries reduced to ash in microseconds. The aliens were demonstrating their ultimate technological superiority, showing humanity that their wilderness could be destroyed with the same casual efficiency as any other obstacle. What they didn't know was that Earth's defense planners had anticipated this exact scenario months before the invasion began. Phase 3 is active, Mackenzie reported into his quantum communicator, watching as energy beams carved steaming craters across the jungle landscape. Repeat, Phase 3 is now active. All units proceed to deep protocols. Across the planet, similar messages activated contingencies that had been prepared in the deepest secrets of human military planning. The wilderness specialists had always known their surface operations were temporary measures, designed to draw alien attention and demonstrate the futility of conventional occupation tactics. The real resistance was about to begin, 3 kilometers beneath the Amazon rainforest. Captain Elena Vasquez led her team through tunnels that had been carved from living rock using technology that officially didn't exist. The underground complex stretched for hundreds of kilometers, connecting natural cave systems with artificially created passages that had been disguised so perfectly that orbital scanners detected only normal geological formations. Movement. Sensors show alien ground-penetrating radar sweeping. Sector 7, reported Sergeant Chun, monitoring the enemy's attempts to locate underground installations. They're finding exactly what we want them to find. The decoy bunkers had been carefully constructed to mimic real military installations, complete with fake equipment signatures and artificial heat sources that would convince enemy sensors they had located genuine command centers. When alien penetrator weapons struck these targets, they would find elaborate facades built around natural caverns, creating the illusion of successful strikes against human infrastructure. Meanwhile, the real underground network remained completely invisible to alien detection methods. Human engineers had spent decades studying their planet's geological structure, learning to work with natural cave systems and underground waterways that had existed for millions of years. The result was a subterranean labyrinth that seemed to be part of Earth's natural formation rather than an artificial construction. "Sir, we're receiving transmission from Siberian Command," reported Communications Specialist Park, her equipment hidden within what appeared to be a natural limestone formation. Arctic teams report successful activation of northern protocols. In the frozen wilderness of Siberia, Captain Petrov's forces had implemented similar strategies, using the region's permafrost and natural ice formations to conceal installations that had been prepared for this exact contingency. The aliens were discovering that destroying Earth's surface wilderness only revealed the deeper layers of human preparation. The orbital bombardment continued for 18 hours, turning vast areas of Earth's surface into glowing wastelands of fused rock and crystallized soil. Alien commanders watched with satisfaction as their sensors showed the complete elimination of biological activity across the targeted regions. Surely no primitive human forces could survive such overwhelming firepower, High Priestess. The Lana materialized aboard Admiral Dexmoor's flagship to observe the final phases of the bombardment. Her energy form flickered with approval as tactical displays showed the systematic destruction of Earth's chaotic wilderness areas. "Excellent work, Admiral," she communicated through quantum resonance patterns. "The elimination of these primitive regions will allow for proper planetary development once the human population has been relocated to more suitable worlds." Admiral Dexmoor's cybernetic systems processed the tactical data with mechanical satisfaction. Confirmed elimination of biological activity across 47% of planetary wilderness regions. Ground forces report no further contact with human resistance elements. Pacification operations can proceed as scheduled. What neither of them realized was that their sensors were showing them exactly what Earth's planners wanted them to see. The underground installations had been designed with sophisticated, holographic projectors that could create false readings on orbital scanners, making destroyed surface areas appear completely lifeless while concealing the vast networks of tunnels and chambers that honeycombed the planet's subsurface below the devastated Amazon. Major Williams led a strike team through passages that connected to similar tunnel networks beneath the Congo, the Southeast Asian jungles, and the mountain wilderness of every continent. Earth's wilderness. Specialists hadn't just learned to fight in individual ecosystems, they had created a planetary network that allowed them to operate anywhere on the globe. Intelligence reports alien occupation forces are consolidating in major urban areas. She briefed her team as they prepared for the next phase of operations. They believe they've eliminated wilderness-based resistance and are moving to establish permanent control over human population centers. The aliens were making their second critical mistake. Having dismissed Earth's wilderness as primitive wasteland that could be easily destroyed, they were now concentrating their forces in the complex urban environments they understood, not realizing that human resistance fighters were about to emerge from subway systems, storm drains, and infrastructure networks that had been secretly modified for exactly this purpose. Earth cities, which the aliens saw as familiar civilized environments, were about to become hunting grounds for warriors who had spent years learning to move through the planet's most hostile natural environments. If the galaxy's advanced species found jungle warfare incomprehensible, they were about to discover that urban combat conducted by wilderness-trained specialists was something beyond their worst nightmares. Sergeant Santos emerged from a maintenance tunnel beneath New York City, her team rising from storm drains and subway access points like creatures emerging from the planet's depths. The aliens had positioned their occupation headquarters in what had once been the United Nations building, confident that their technological superiority would protect them in the heart of human civilization. They were about to learn that Earth's warriors brought the wilderness with them wherever they went. Chemical compounds extracted from jungle plants could disable energy shields, just as effectively in Manhattan as they had in the Amazon. Camouflage techniques perfected in forest environments worked equally well in the concrete canyons of urban landscapes. Most importantly, the psychological advantage gained by demonstrating mastery over hostile environments translated perfectly to the new battlefield. The aliens had destroyed Earth's surface wilderness, but they had only succeeded in releasing its guardians into an environment where their technological advantages would prove even more useless than they had in the jungle. As night fell over the occupied cities, Earth's wilderness elite prepared to teach the galaxy's most advanced civilizations their final lesson in the futility of underestimating a species that had learned to thrive in environments that would kill most of their enemies within hours. The real war for Earth was about to begin. The liberation of Earth began not with grand battles or heroic charges, but with the quiet disappearance of alien sentries in the heart of occupied cities. Commander Zixtal stood in his command center, watching as his urban occupation forces reported the same impossible phenomena that had plagued his jungle operations. "Sir, Patrol Unit 347 has failed to report from the subway tunnels beneath Sector 9, reported Lieutenant Kexival, his voice carrying a familiar note of frustrated confusion. Their last transmission indicated normal patrol status, then complete communication loss. Zixtal studied the holographic display of New York City, noting how his forces controlled every major intersection, government building, and strategic facility. According to every tactical doctrine he had studied, urban environments favored technological superiority and organized military formations. Yet his soldiers were vanishing in civilized areas with the same mysterious efficiency they had experienced in the primitive wilderness. What the alien commander couldn't understand was that Earth's wilderness specialists had never truly left their natural habitat. They had simply expanded it to include every environment on their planet. The same skills that allowed them to move unseen through dense jungle foliage worked equally well in the maze of maintenance tunnels, storm drains, and abandoned infrastructure that existed beneath every major city. Sergeant Spider Rodriguez demonstrated this principle as he moved through the ventilation system of the alien-occupied federal building, his enhanced agility allowing him to navigate air shafts that would have been impossible for most species to access. The aliens had positioned security sensors at every conventional entry point, but they had never considered that an attacker might approach through routes that required superhuman flexibility and endurance. The paralytic toxin on Spider's crossbow bolt was the same compound he had used in the Amazon, extracted from creatures that had evolved over millions of years to incapacitate prey much larger than themselves. The alien communications specialist who collapsed at his workstation would be found hours later, alive but completely unconscious, his sophisticated equipment mysteriously disabled by organic acids that had been precisely applied to critical circuits, similar. Operations unfolded simultaneously across the globe as Earth's underground network coordinated attacks that seemed to violate every law of military strategy. In London, Captain Sarah Mitchell's team emerged from abandoned tube stations to eliminate alien patrols with the silent efficiency of apex predators. In Tokyo, Major Tanaka's specialists moved through the city's labyrinthine infrastructure like ghosts, leaving disabled alien equipment and unconscious occupation soldiers in their wake. The psychological impact on the alien forces was devastating. These creatures had conquered dozens of worlds using overwhelming technological superiority, but they had never faced an enemy that seemed to treat their most advanced weapons and defensive systems as minor inconveniences. Human attackers appeared in locations that should have been impossible to reach, eliminated targets that should have been invulnerable, and vanished through escape routes that shouldn't have existed. Admiral Dexmore found himself receiving reports that challenged his fundamental understanding of warfare. His occupation forces controlled every major city on the planet, possessed overwhelming firepower, and maintained complete orbital supremacy. Yet they were losing soldiers at an alarming rate to an enemy that seemed to strike from the planet itself. "Admiral, we must request additional reinforcements," urged Commander Zixtel during their emergency strategy conference. "The human resistance capabilities appear to exceed our initial assessments by several orders of magnitude." The Admiral's cybernetic processors struggled to analyze tactical data that made no logical sense. "Our intelligence indicated that human special forces numbered less than 50,000 individuals planet-wide. Current casualty rates suggest we are facing an enemy force of at least 10 times that size, with capabilities that match or exceed our own elite units." What they didn't realize was that they were correct about human numbers but completely wrong about human capabilities. Earth's wilderness specialists weren't just individually skilled warriors. They were part of a planetary ecosystem that had been preparing for this exact scenario for decades. Every sewer worker, every cave explorer, every mountain climber had been quietly trained in basic resistance techniques. Every urban infrastructure system had been mapped and modified to support guerrilla operations. The aliens were fighting not just Earth's military forces, but an entire planetary population that had learned to weaponize their knowledge of environments that galactic civilizations had long ago abandoned or destroyed. High Priestess Vellana materialized in the occupied United Nations, building for what was supposed to be a final negotiation with human leadership. Instead, she found herself facing Secretary General Rodriguez, who had somehow returned to the building despite alien security protocols that should have made his presence impossible. "High Priestess," Rodriguez said calmly, seated at his desk as though he had never left. "I believe you wanted to discuss terms for Earth's surrender." Vellana's energy form flickered with confusion and growing alarm. "How did you access this facility?" "Our security measures detect no unauthorized presence." "Perhaps," Rodriguez replied with a slight smile, "your security measures aren't designed to detect authorized presence. This is still Earth, after all, and we know our way around." The human diplomat's casual confidence was unnerving. But what truly disturbed the High Priestess was the realization that her own forces had somehow failed to detect his arrival. If humans could move through alien-secured facilities with such ease, then no occupation installation was truly safe. "You have witnessed our technological capabilities," Vellana said, attempting to reassert control over the situation. "Your wilderness areas have been eliminated, your military forces scattered. Continued resistance serves no purpose." Rodriguez leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "High Priestess, that's an interesting perspective. You see wilderness as something that can be eliminated, but we see it differently. Wilderness isn't just trees and animals, it's a way of thinking, an approach to solving problems that your civilization abandoned long ago." As if summoned by his words, alien communication systems throughout the building began reporting coordinated equipment failures. Energy shields flickered and died, computer systems displayed impossible error messages. and security sensors showed readings that defied logical interpretation. Your people believed they were conquering a primitive world. Rodriguez continued as emergency alarms began sounding throughout the building. Instead, they've learned that sometimes the most advanced technology is knowing how to live and fight in harmony with forces that can't be controlled or predicted. Through the building's windows, both human and alien could see similar scenes playing out across the city as Earth's resistance forces emerged from their underground network to begin the final phase of liberation operations. The aliens were discovering that their orbital bombardment had only strengthened human resolve while eliminating the environmental constraints that had kept Earth's warriors focused on defensive operations. Colonel Mackenzie's voice crackled through hidden speakers as resistance forces coordinated their planet-wide offensive. All units, commence Operation Liberation. Show our guests what Earth's children can accomplish when we stop playing by civilized rules. The galaxy had mocked Earth's primitive wilderness, dismissing it as wasteland that served no useful purpose in advanced civilization. Now they were learning that wilderness wasn't just an environment. It was a philosophy of survival that could transform any battlefield into hostile territory for enemies who had forgotten how to adapt, improvise, and overcome obstacles that couldn't be solved with superior technology. Earth's wilderness elite had taught the galaxy to fear the power of warriors who remained connected to the primal forces that had forged human civilization, and no amount of advanced technology could protect against enemies who had learned to make the entire planet their weapon. The age of galactic dominance was ending, and the era of human expansion among the stars was about to begin.